Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. For those of you just joining me, my name is Marcy, and I read tarot for a living and energies, and I've been inspired to start my own channel to help me and help you on your journey, on your spiritual journey. Today, I have John of New with us. Now, you've heard me mention him before in one of my earlier videos. John's phrase is live loving, and let me tell you, the energy off of John it's just amazing. You can feel the love. You can actually feel the love. So John has an incredible, very fascinating life story, and it includes, and a big part of it is his past life experience. So John, I'm going to put this over to you, and please just tell us your story.
All right. So I was raised a good Catholic boy of a very large Catholic family with a mother. Just to show you how Catholic we truly were. My mom had her master's degree in liturgy and was head of liturgical doctrine at our church. So I was an altar boy. I was a reader. I shoveled the snow on the sidewalks of the church. I did all the stuff. Well, my mom gave me a great gift when I was 18. She said, John, spirituality is a personal journey. You need to go off and find out what you truly believe. So the first thing I did was become an atheist. Right? And I read, I don't have to do with that anymore, right? Threw that away. Right. Well, I found out very quickly when atheist, when you're only existing off of empirical evidence, and the world is constantly showing you the negative in the news, that it becomes very dark. It becomes very negative. And I eventually had some fairly big spiritual experiences that kind of showed me there was something more, but I didn't necessarily know what it was. But what happened next was I was a Renaissance Festival entertainer and artistic director, and I was at a show in Canada with my comedy show Hack and Slash, and staying at a friend's house, and he was having a party. And what happened was I was sitting there at this party, and at this point I had already begun to see energies. I start to see these flows of energies between people, and the way I saw the world was very different. And this woman started staring at me from the other side of the room. And I was like, okay, this is a little weird. And especially since I knew that was her husband right next to her. It was really weird. Suddenly she gets up and comes across to me. She says, I know what you're doing. You're looking at my aura. Now, I don't define it as auras because I don't see colors. I just see energy flows.
Me too.
Yeah. Oh, good. Okay, good. So we lock in on that. So she says, you know you walked with Jesus, right? And I was like, excuse me? And oddly enough, I'd started to see these energies, but I still had not ever gone to a psychic before. I'd never even had that experience yet. So here I was, this woman's telling me I walked with Jesus, and she walked away after the conversation, and I was like, oh my God, that feels right. It just feels right. And that freaked me out because as a Catholic boy, that shouldn't feel right, right? Right. So about a week later, I was at the Maryland Renaissance Festival and had my Airstream travel trailer, and I was parked, and all of a sudden this big RV pulls in, and it's her and her husband coming to do that same show. So I started talking to her, and I said, let's do another reading. So we drove down to my hometown, which is a couple hours away from there in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. And we went to the beach, and we sat on the beach. And in the middle of the second reading, she full body channeled the guy that I call Jeshua. And he said through her, I love you. I've always loved you. I will always love you. I'm with you. I've always been with you. And I love you. I love you. I'm with you. I've been with you. I always will be with you. And he said, John of old, John of new. And so I know that I'm John Davis, and I know that I'm consciously living in this present moment. So I call myself John of new, not John of old. I'm not that ancient life, right? So that freaked me out again. So I was like, okay, I'm done with this. This is just crazy. I'm just deluding myself. Ended up doing the Renaissance Festival, and I'm sitting talking to a friend of mine about mundane stuff. In the middle of the conversation, this other person suddenly said, you know that you were John the Beloved, right? And I was like, this is getting crazy. Then I went to a holistic festival because a friend of mine was selling jewelry there. At Renaissance festivals, you have a lot of artists, right? So I'm walking down to this holistic fair. I walk past the row of readers. A lady stops her reading, runs out, grabs me by the arm, and says, "You know you were John the Beloved, right?" And I'm like, "What the heck's going on? I'm going crazy!" Right? So right about the same time, a book had come out called The Messengers, and it was about a guy named Nick Puni who remembered being the Apostle Paul under regression. And I was like, okay, well, okay, so I'm a very science minded person. I
Mhm.
want I want to test it, right? So I looked in his book. I found out who his readers were, and I was like, I'm going to call them out of the blue without them knowing a thing. I'm going to see what happens. Well, I called up the first one, which was Atira Hatton, and Atira was one of the ARE, the Association for Research and Enlightenment, better known as the Edgar Casey Foundation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. She was one of their certified psychics, and so I'm like, okay, I'm going to call her up, and I'm going to see what happens. Ha ha ha, you know. I said, "Hi, I'd like to set up an appointment." "Oh my God, you were John the Beloved." That's what she says on the other side of the phone, right? And then we set up another appointment, and she ended up giving me a reading that told me everything that had ever happened in my life and things that I don't even remember. But my brothers and sisters later verified that those things happened, out of body experiences and all kinds of amazing things. But I'm a stubborn guy, right? They kept coming. 19 of them in total ended up telling me the same story. And here I am, and I'm like, okay, maybe I should just get a regression. And I had one of those moments of crisis where I was like, what am I doing? What am I doing? This is weird. So I said, just give me a sign. And I opened up a book by Jess Stern. Was called Edgar Casey on the Millennium. And I'm reading the book, and I get to page 32. I'll never forget the number of that page because I opened that page, and right in the center of the page it says, "John the Beloved will again be named John." And I'm like, okay, time for the regression, right? So,
Oh.
so I do an internet search, and I find a real certified hypnotherapist who does regressions. I'm not trying to find someone who's just learned it through an internet search or through. I want someone who actually has credentials, letters after their name. So
Right.
that so I found this wonderful lady. She's now retired. Um, and I went to her, and a week before the regression, I went to her, and she guided me through a meditation with her voice, sent me home with a recording so that I could train my mind, I guess, to her voice. And so when I came to the regression, she regressed me. So she got me down into the regression, and suddenly my eyes open, and I'm standing on a rocky, sandy shore. And in my hands, I have what look like tangles of ropes. And the more I look at these tangles of ropes, I realize that they're not ropes, they're nets. And what I'm doing is I'm tying the pieces that are broken, basically repairing the net. I look down, and the first thing I see is bare legs, right? And so I'm like, ha ha, not an apostle, because they all wear robes, right?
Okay.
Right. That's the way I'm thinking, right? They all wear robes. My research later, I discovered what that was called a fisher's coat. Because when they fished on the sea, if they fell over wearing robes, they'd have been pulled under and they would have died.
Right.
This was basically a tunic that you tied at the waist, bare arms, bare legs. It was like a Galilean one piece bathing suit, right? So here I am, and I'm looking at. She says, "What's the next most important thing?" And I look up, and people are running by me on this beach, and I'm looking at and I look down the beach, and there's a crowd down the beach, and she says, "What's that?" I said, "I'm going to go see." And I go over to see, and I come to this crowd, and the crowd basically just parts. And I kind of like push my way in, and there in the center of the crowd is the guy call Joshua ben Joseph, right? And you could when I saw him, Joshua ben Joseph, for those of you who don't know, Jesus is his other name, his better known name. And I saw him and I could feel the love from the man. So much so that I was losing my breath in the regression. Oh my God. Oh my God. And you hear me say, I can feel him. I can feel him. Right. He looks at me. He gives me this knowing smile like he's known me his entire life. I've never met the man. He walks over, he raises his hand up, he drops it onto my chest. And I leave this illusion. I literally go to the other side and experience pure love without fear. I experience the complete oneness of God. And I'm experiencing this. And in the, by the way, I edited my regressions so you don't have to hear me moan for 7 minutes. um, good. You can get some weird thoughts when you think about that. But the regressionist got confused. She says, "Are you with him or are you him?" And my answer was, "I'm within him."
Ooh.
And it was like I had gone into the oneness of God. And then after a time, it was settling down. She says, "What's the next most important moment?" And the next most important moment was falling back into all of my fears and anxieties and feeling that contrast, feeling that difference,
Mhm.
and realizing that had I not felt my fears and my anxiety and my separation, I would never know what love felt like or God felt like.
Right.
And so you really have to have those experiences. And that's and there's more. But that's the Reader's Digest version of my basic story.
There's tons more. When I heard your regression, I was overwhelmed. I was sobbing right along with you during the
Me,
crucifixion. I
me
mean,
too.
it broke my heart. Now, talking about your science mind, let's get you into the car after the regression. What was your drive home like? Like, what is going through that head? What are you thinking at this point?
I was saying a lot of F bombs. I was like, what the F was that? What the my F. I'm like, the thing about the regression that was most profound, really, was, and it's hard to describe, but I was viscerally there. I was smelling the air and feeling the wind and feeling the rocks under my feet. And the conversation I was having with the regressionist was the thoughts in my head. It was like the consciousness had shifted places. So I was that person in that time frame, and I was experiencing that in real time physically. And so to me, it was mind blowing, mind blowing. And as a science minded person, I did still have my moments of going, okay, now did that just happen because all these psychics had told me? And so here I am doing down that route. But then I started having many more profound experiences. For instance, I went to Norway, and if you look on my channel, there's a video on there called "I Took a Picture of Jesus."
Yep,
Um,
fascinating.
I snapped a picture of Jesus, and the face showed up in it, right? Um, and I have now I have come to the understanding of this image that we live in, or what they call it, in God's image. Everything we see is this energy of God, and I've come to realize that this image is the product of our belief. And I've been very fortunate in the fact that I've been able to help people come to belief in healing, and they've healed themselves. I've watched children stand up in the wheelchairs. Watched people forget their canes as they leave rooms. I had one woman who came to me with terminal cancer, and she got rid of her cancer instantaneously. And it was not because of a healer. It was because of them coming to their faith.
Right.
And so, like, they would sit with me, and I would convince them of their faith, basically. And so, to me, it's really fascinating how now I have no doubt whatsoever, and I know that we all have our own, as my mom said, spirituality is a personal journey. I know we all have our own pathway to get there. We all have our own, and to me, it's a matter of, if you're finding love in whatever form you're doing, then you're finding God. You're finding God, consciousness, yada yada, whatever you call it. I call it God because Mom was Catholic, but um, it really comes down to, if you're finding love in your way of thinking, then you found your connection to Source.
Right.
It's right there. I'm talking a lot. Am I talking too much for you, Marcy?
No, not at all. I mean, I really want to encourage my followers to go onto your website, because I mean, you just offer so much information that is so helpful. Your way of talking about the experiences is not woo-woo at all. It's very logical. It makes a lot of sense psychologically, but the experience that you have when you listen to the regression, the experience I had, and I'm certain others had, is just absolutely overwhelming. I love what you just mentioned about loving them into getting them to believe in the power of healing themselves.
Right.
I call that fairy godmother energy.
Okay.
What you are doing is you are loving someone to the point that they believe they are worthy of these miracles.
Yeah.
And that in itself is an incredible thing, which brings me back to Joshua. When you talk about Joshua, you can like almost feel the glow. When someone mentions Joshua to you, is there a specific image or memory that pops in that brings you to that place? Or
Every time someone mentions Yeshua to me, I see this man laughing in front of me.
oh, that's beautiful.
We used to, when in that my memories traveling, we would sit on the side of the road and just gorge ourselves on figs when we found them, right? And we'd laugh and we'd joke and he was always just funny, he was always just funny, and he would make you feel so good about yourself every time you come around him, and he'd tease and he'd play, and his and here's where it gets a little controversial, is his wife, yes, his wife, right? um, he called her Ishti, and Ishti is the Aramaic word for wife, but the way he said it was not like Ishti, it was like Ishti. He was like, he would tease and play with her, and they loved each other so much. They were always hanging on each other. It was just such a beautiful representation of love. Not only just love in general, but also romantic love. They were very much romantically connected, and it was just a beautiful. All of my memories of him, and I have memories of the crucifixion, and they were horrible. And if you heard the regression,
Yeah.
yes, she led me to the crucifixion. And let me just kind of say that was an accident on her part, because one of the things she does in her standard regression was take the person to the death of the person that they were.
Right.
And she said in the regression, how would you feel about seeing his death? And she had no idea that in John of Old's life, there was nothing more important than Jeshua. And so seeing his death, at the moment she said that, in the regression, I was literally watching him walk away. And so how would you feel about seeing his death? It really took me to him. And the next thing you know, I saw the crucifixion. And if you've heard the regression, you know that moment. It rips me apart every time I hear it. I cry every time I hear it.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't go back and listen to that part of that regression very often, just because I don't want to go there again. But even in that moment, the reason I wanted to bring that up is because even in that moment, there was a moment during that crucifixion where he turned to make me smile or make me laugh. I mean, when they crucified him, they nailed through here, not here. You always see it
Right.
here. It's through here, and they nailed sideways through his ankle bones into the side of the cross. There was no comfortable pedestal for his foot to sit on, like you see in a lot of crucifixes, right? They literally bent his knees, put his legs next to the thing, and nailed in sideways. And Golgotha, the hill of Golgotha, was a stone hill. It was like a giant rock, and they had chipped holes into the upper surface, and it was the highest point in the area, specifically because the Romans wanted people to see the people who were being punished. because it was a way of, you know, putting
Control.
fear out there,
Yeah.
control, right? So this rock had these holes where they would lift up a cross, it would drop down into that hole, and then when that person was gone, they'd pull the cross back down, and they'd reuse the crosses over and over again. And when they raised him up, he was already nailed, and they come up, and it dropped down in that hole, and you can imagine
The
the
jarring. Yeah.
jarring pain in the hands and the ankles, and it happened. He looked at me and he goes, like like to say, well, that hurt, right.
Oh,
But and he didn't say it, but he conveyed it, right. And here I was at the foot of that cross with his mother on one side and his wife on the other side. And John was the only disciple of the 12 who actually was at the crucifixion. Yeah, the mother and the wife were there, but John was the only one who actually went. The rest of them were told to be in hiding, and were in hiding. Um, but John was told his charge was to take care of his wife and his mother. So, and that's why in the Bible it says, "Mother, there's your son, there's your mother." It was like literally giving that charge, and so I had to be there. So, that experience of seeing that was all because of the fact that I was doing something for my friend. At that point.
it's so amazing, and I'm starting to get a little overwhelmed here. Um, so let's change the subject. Let's talk
Okay.
about. I've had your reading. I have been watching you since I first saw you on Intuitive View, your first interview with Kim, and I followed you immediately. I was absolutely just overwhelmed with emotion, just the connection, that the energy that you put out. Your readings are very different from, I mean, it's like a card reading, talk about what happens during your reading and what you really are hoping to accomplish by reading people and having your channel.
Well, what I do is about an hour before I do a reading, I sit down and I literally write their name on a blank sheet of paper, and I just start writing. And the way I start writing is I let go. I just release myself, and I just whatever words pop into my head, and I just write. And I just write. And then when the person comes on, I usually just read that thing first, because that is from pure source for me.
Mhm.
And then what happens is that usually it's very beautiful, because what happens is that takes us off into their real experience, what they're really going through. And as we talk, I tend to go back and go, well, look what this says here. And the actual writing comes to life during the process. And then at the end, when we read it again, it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't hear that before. And so to me, it literally is about, there's two main objectives for me. My main objective is to awaken them to their divinity, to have them come into their own power and realize that they're not only one with God, but creating with God, a co-creator. Number two, to to bring their time to be very present, because we live in only one moment. We only live in one moment. The past is a collection of present moment memories. The future is just a place where we set goals for our next present moment. And so, in reality, what's happening is we think we're moving through time, but in reality, time is moving through us.
Oh.
Yeah. So we sit here in this moment, and our thoughts, words, and deeds in this moment are creating, being brought into focus around our physical experience. Because you never experience anything in the future. You always experience it in your present moment. So you're going to sit there and you put your thoughts, words, and deeds, and you start to manifest new things. So most people sit here in the present moment and they go, they say, well, because of this, this, and this is how the world is. Right. And they hold on to all this past junk. Right. And the realization that if nothing can be done about the things in the past and you're in this moment, there's infinite possibilities of this moment. So you can stay in this moment and you can say, I am creating this. I am joyfully doing that. But most people don't realize it has to be very present. You know, even the word amen means so be it. It means right here, right now, done. Right. And the Bible says, whatever you ask in God's name is granted if you have faith. But Moses said God's name was I am, not I will be or I was. Right? I am right here, right now.
Mhm.
So my goal really is to show people that they're not only worthy, but divine and creating and can choose to create whatever they want. And it really does come down to getting very present. And that's the hardest lesson for people to learn, is that because they sit there and they go, well, I want to have this, and I need to have that. I'm trying to have that. Well, want, need, hope, try, wishing can't create nothing. I am wanting, I am needing, I am hoping. God's name is I am. I'm creating, I am enjoying, I'm receiving, I'm, exploring. I am. Those are words that are present, moment, active, and create amazing experiences in your life. And so it's a matter of the feeling of want brings you down, but the feeling of receiving brings you up, right?
Yes.
It's really a matter of come to that feeling. Yeah. So does that answer your question? I went long on that one.
No. When I had my reading with you, we talked about meditation, and I was like, I was doing the same thing. I'm trying. And my mom watches you as well. And
Hi, Mom.
I would say, I'm trying so hard, Mom. I'm trying so hard. I know I'm supposed to have this connection. I'm trying so hard. And she said, stop trying. Stop trying.
You know what the greatest sage in the world once said?
What's that?
Do or do not, there is no try. Right?
Yeah.
Yoda was a wise man. You know what else?
Oh,
You know what else he said?
what's that?
Named must your fears be before banish it you can.
Oh, yeah. Yes, you have to cause attention to what it is, bring attention to what it is so you know how to fix it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. My dog here is trying to distract me.
Hi, dog.
This is my Bruno. I've talked about Bruno before. He's an amazing baby, but he's a handful, and you got to try to keep him happy or he's going to start barking here. You always, I know how busy you are, and I appreciate you coming here so much. You always have such amazing advice. And in the spirit of Yoda, what parting wisdom do you have to bestow on the watchers today?
Yeah. Remember that you are the pinpoint of creation, and your life is a direct reflection of your belief. But you get to choose that belief. And fear is just negatively focused uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
So focus positively in this present moment and realize you're creating a beautiful life. And so you go out and you live a loving life.
And you do live a loving life, and you help me to live a loving life. And your reading was transformational for me. I'm really, it was just incredible. I highly recommend getting a reading from John. He's got all sorts of great merch. So go check that out. His station, his channel is just filled with so much wisdom. John, your energy, it just gets me going. It just gives me some, that joy de vivre, I guess it is. But
well, it's mutual, my friend. I promise.
Thank you so much. And again, I appreciate all that you do so much, and you do so much to change the lives of others. And we both have that. That's our drive, is to empower others, to bring people to understand that this isn't something special. We all have this. It's a matter of how much you want it, how much you're willing to work for it, and how far you're going to take it. And you've encouraged me to really take things pretty far. So I'm very excited for the future. Please, thank you all for coming here. But please check out John's channel. That's John of New. Absolutely amazing. Again, thank you so much. Go ahead.
And let me say, I'm gonna send you a link, Marcy, so that your viewers can get $50 off of one of my readings.
Oh, awesome.
And so, and I'll just send you the link right after we're done here today, so you can put it in your description.
Wonderful. Oh, take advantage of this opportunity. You will not regret it. Even just go check out the merch. I mean, look at the colors on it. It's just gorgeous. Love it. Okay, again, thank you so much, my friend. You take care. Have a wonderful day.